All right. Good morning, folks. Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube. Hello to the podcast listeners. Welcome to the PTNI's Daily Show. We're here on Leadership Thursday. My name is Alan. I'm happy to be joining you this morning. Late start. Coaching schedule change. Just finished a long bout of coaching, but happy to have you here on Leadership Thursday. I currently have the pleasure of serving as our Chief Operating Officer and a faculty member in our fitness athlete division. Here on Thursdays, we talk about practice management and ownership, small business leadership, and all sorts of things like that. So Leadership Thursday also means it is Gut Check Thursday. This week's Gut Check Thursday, nothing very complex, a bike and an ab mat. We have 2-minute rounds with no rest between them. 20 calories on the bike for guys, 15 calories for gals. And then in the remaining time in that 2-minute window, you're doing as many ab mat sit-ups as you can. And the workout finishes once you achieve 120 ab mat sit-ups. So a lot of cardio, a lot of core. This workout is nice because you can scale the calories for a patient in the clinic. If you want to use this as a recovery workout, you can go much slower on that bike every round, treat it as a moderate pace, do just maybe 10 or 15 sit-ups around and kind of stretch this out into a longer, more zone 2-ish workout. Or you can drop the hammer on that bike, sprint it, try to get those calories done in under a minute and really try to rip through those sit-ups, trying to get done under 10 minutes. So nothing fancy, something you do in the garage, something you can do in the clinic, something you can do in the back corner of the gym. So have fun with Gut Check Thursday. Course is coming your way. We have Fitness Athlete Live this weekend down in Columbus, Ohio. That's with Mitch and Troy Kress as our TA. That's actually at CrossFit Polaris, Christy Aramo, O'Connell's gym. Wonderful games athlete, fantastic coach, a wonderful gym. Overall, a great place to take Fitness Athlete Live. So if you're in the Columbus area and you're still looking to join, you can jump into that course this weekend with Mitch. Joe will be up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, up in Canada this weekend. Also Fitness Athlete Live. That's our first time in Eastern Canada, so we're super excited for that course. That's a little bit more than a drive away for most of us, but if you're out in Eastern Canada, we'd love to have you there. We have Christina Previtt down in Germantown, Maryland this weekend for Older Adult Live, and then we have Justin Dunaway in Memphis, Tennessee for Total Spine Thrust. Next weekend, you have yet another chance to catch Fitness Athlete Live, this time again with Joe in Milwaukee. You can join Zach Morgan in Bloomington, Illinois for cervical spine management. You can join Alexis Morgan in Cincinnati for Fitness Athlete, Pregnancy and Postpartum Live. You can join Jordan Berry out in Bellingham, Washington for lumbar spine management. And you can join the amazing and eccentric Dr. Lindsay Huey down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for extremity management next weekend. And then our last weekend of the month, Christina Previtt will be down in Greenville, South Carolina for Older Adult Live again. Online courses coming your way. We have basically every online course we offer starting up within the next month or so. We have Older Adult Essential Foundations starting August 17th. We have Persistent Pain Management starting August 22nd. We have Primary Care Physical Therapy starting September 5th. We have Pregnancy and Postpartum Online starting September 6th. And we have Fitness Athlete Essential Foundations with myself, Mitch, Kelly, and Guillermo starting September 12th. So lots of courses coming your way over the next couple months. So ptnice.com, as always, to check those out. So let's get into today's topic. This is going to be the first in a 2-part series. We'll kind of come back to this topic when I'm on next in about a month. But today we're going to tackle it from what can we do to address the issue with entry-level education, and really kind of what can we do to help the future generation of physical therapists, that next generation coming behind those of us who are already in practice. What can we do to help them on an individual level? What can we do as clinicians? What can we do as clinic owners? And then what sort of changes do we need to help be pushed along on a systemic level? So I want to give you 3 ways we can address this as individual clinicians and practice owners, in 3 ways of how getting more involved can help address this from a system-wide issue. So first things first, before we even get into these points, I always hear, the issue is going to be on the board exam. And really, that is the role of an entry-level program, is to make sure that you're safe with patients and that you pass that board exam and actually get a license and you're able to practice physical therapy. And the APTA has no say over that. And we look at CAPTE, the organization that accredits entry-level schools. Again, they have no say over that. That is a separate independent organization that looks at accreditation for entry-level programs. Are they meeting the minimum requirements that are going to prepare a student for entry-level practice? Are they going to create a safe, quote unquote, competent physical therapist who has passed the board exam or is going to be able to pass the board exam with the material taught obtain lights, and we need to stop defaulting to that answer and kind of dig a little bit deeper into what's going on and how we can help the next generation of physical therapists so they don't end up like us, which is overworked, underpaid in a continually breaking down system for the most part. So I want to start with 3 points that we can address and work on as individual clinicians, and then move into 3 things that can be addressed and worked on from a systemic level, which we as individuals cannot change too much, but by getting more involved in our professional organizations and knowing how to advocate for these future PTs who may even just be undergrad students at this point, how we can start to create some system-wide change. So the first is start early, right? Get these people as early as possible. Take undergrad observation students. We know that the majority of schools, about 75% of programs require observation hours. So there are undergrad students out there looking to complete these observation hours to complete their physical therapy school program. Now, some of these folks may have committed or in their mind committed to a school, but we have to understand about these undergrad observation students is they haven't finished their hours yet. That's why they're trying to get them with you. So they have not completed an application and they are not locked into any specific school. They are still at this point in the pipeline able to change schools, and that's where we need to grab them. We need to be more proactive. Obviously, just saying that you take observation students on your website probably isn't going to somehow magically attract them. But going to the undergrad programs near you and speaking to the pre-PT programs, speaking to the exercise science programs, a lot of students in those programs are thinking about PT school. And you as an individual PT, as a practice owner, can carry a lot of weight in what you say when you go there. I'm someone who still goes to my undergrad alma mater and speaks to the pre-PT program every year and lets them know what PT school looks like, lets them know what their options for PT school look like. It's not just about finding the school closest to your house. Really, where we go to school is going to determine a lot of how much loan debt we take on and how soon we get into the workforce. So we recognize these students are kind of annoying, right? They don't know anything. They're just kind of standing around our clinic. They don't really even know what questions to ask. They're just trying to understand and conceptualize what physical therapy even is. That being said, having them in the clinic, being able to talk to them, they're probably not going to really understand a lot of the treatments we're doing or the rationale, but being able to talk to them on a personal level about where they're thinking about going to school. Have they even thought about a setting they want to practice in? What does their financial situation look like? Starting to understand those questions is going to let you make recommendations on choosing a school. And it's really important to get to them before they commit to a school. Often, as PT students and then as graduate clinicians, we're kind of told it's our job to make PT seem fun for these people and kind of almost trick them into signing up for physical therapy. I would argue the opposite. Our job is to show them what physical therapy actually looks like and give them a lot of information, a lot of both subjective and objective data so they can better make an informed decision about which school to go to if they even end up going to physical therapy school at all. And that's where we can have a big intervention in determining not only who the next generation is, but the choices they make with their schooling. We need to be aware of the costs and options available for entry-level schooling. Often we only know our own program, and even then, most of us probably just blindly signed a loan note electronically at the start of the semester. We really didn't even have an idea of what we paid, how much we borrowed, how much of that was actually tuition, how much was fees, how much of that was excess loan money that we used to maybe pay our rent because we weren't able to work in our work in our program. So we need to understand the options available in the local area, but also at a national level. We need to be aware of what hybrid programs are out there. We need to be aware of the costs. We need to be able to give this data to these people so they can make the best decision. At the end of the day, unless they are going to get a discount because their family member went to a school or their family member is an employee at a school, for most people, the best choice is going to be whatever is the cheapest that gets them out with the less student loan debt and gets them into the workforce the soonest. And we really need to be thinking about directing these people to the 2-year hybrid programs or a program where maybe the 3rd year of school, they have scholarships or something available during clinical year so they don't accumulate as much student loan debt as possible. That's the number one issue with our profession is literally how much debt we accrue in school compared to what we actually make when we enter the physical therapy workforce. Right now, loans are 7%. They're pretty low post-COVID during this inflationary period we have going on. They're frozen until August 31st. If that freeze does not get extended again like it has for the past 2 years, we might see it go up. Some of us who have already graduated in the years prior to COVID probably have loans that are higher than that, 8, 9, maybe even close to 10%. So loans that look like 3 to 4 times the loan rate of a mortgage, which is a significant amount of money, considering a lot of physical therapy students probably borrowed more than the cost of a house to go to school. So, and we need to be truthful with these people and recognizing the main issue with our profession, aside from entry-level schooling not really preparing us for practice, is the cost itself. That most physical therapists are graduating with an amount of student loans that will place them into debt for the majority of their adult life. That a lot of us are going to have to make a decision of, do we want to be a physical therapist? Do we want to own a house? Do we want to have a family? And the realization that for some of us, it might not be possible to do all of those things depending on how much student loan debt that we have borrowed. For me, I'm amazed at the amount of loans that my classmates had. I had the GI Bill pay for all of my undergrad in my first year of grad school. And I still came out with $120,000. I have classmates who went to undergrad out of state, sometimes private, who were in grad school out of state, who have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in student loans. That number is so big, it can be hard to conceptualize. We need to know what that looks like in a monthly payment. That's how our society works. That's how our brains work. What does that look like per month? We need to know that data for these undergrad students to let them know what is the actual cost of physical therapy school. That $300,000 at 6% is a monthly payment of about $1,800 a month. That's more than most people's mortgages. Somebody that is thinking about out of state for undergrad, somebody that's thinking about out of state for grad school, we need to sit that person down and say, look, you're talking about $500,000 of student loan debt. That's $3,000 a month for the rest of your adult life. That is an amount of money that you're definitely not going to earn or be able to out earn as a physical therapist. So we need to understand the financial information with those people as well. So be aware of the costs and the options available. And then on our end, as we start to take graduate students, physical therapy students, unfortunately, we can't pay them, right? We can't pay them money. This is kind of like the argument with collegiate athletes that we're making money off of them. They are billing codes. The insurance company doesn't recognize a student PT code from a PT code. So when they are treating patients and billing, they are getting paid the same, even though we're not allowed to pay them. But what we can do is offer them other stuff. A lot of hospital groups are now offering scholarships for that third year of school or that second year of school for those hybrid programs, where they are paying those students tuition in exchange for a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year job commitment. We need to be aware of those options that are out there as well. On our end, we can offer tuition reimbursement. We can offer things like a gym membership. So we can offer some stuff to these students to help them mitigate some of that debt. So we need to be aware of the costs and options available, the time commitment. We need to start early with these undergraduate students, help where we can with those PT students who come to us who are already in school. So that's how we can intervene a little bit on the clinician side of things. Now, what about on the systemic side of things? Okay, if we have to get rid of the idea that we just are going to wait for the APTA to fix it, what can we actually do? The first thing is we need to be real about the cost, and we need to start getting more involved in our state organizations and in national organizations about the cost of school. That tuition at some schools has gone up 20% a year every year since the student loan cap was removed in 2008. So for those who aren't aware of that, prior to 2008, there was a cap on how much you could borrow. That was lifted in 2008. The idea was it would allow more people to go to school if they could also borrow cost of living during school. So not just borrowing tuition and fees as a loan, but hey, you're in grad school, you're expected to be at grad school sometimes at 7 a.m. until 7, 8, 9 p.m., a 12-hour day, 5 days a week. There's really not going to be any way you could hold any sort of meaningful job. So what can we do about the cost? We're going to lift that cap and let people borrow basically an unlimited amount. Whatever the school charges, we can borrow that plus the cost of living. Unfortunately, what was not foreseen is that schools would just continually raise tuition every year, knowing that students would be able to continually borrow that exact amount year over year. So that happened now 16 years ago with no signs of slowing down. So we need to recognize that's an issue, and we need to recognize how much that looks like money-wise. It's really an obscene amount of money to raise prices 20% across 16 years. Think about that with you charging patients a cash rate. If you began in 2008 and charged $100 a visit and you raised 20% every year for the past 16 years, your current cash rate would be $1,070 an hour right now. You're thinking nobody would pay that, right? Nobody is going to pay you $1,000 an hour for physical therapy. That's way too much. Certainly over time, we raise our rates as we get busier and our demand gets higher and the quality of care we offer gets better. But there's a ceiling on that. Unfortunately, we don't have that with school. With ICE, if we started in 2008 with a $495 ticket, our tickets right now would be $5,300 a course. Same thing. Nobody would take a course from us. So we have to recognize there needs to be a ceiling there, and we have to get that under control. And we have to work with local organizations, our state professional association, our national professional association, to do something about putting a cap on this continual tuition raise. We need to understand that there are organizations out there that are working on this. There is the American Council of Academic Physical Therapy, ACAPT. Their membership body is 95% of the entry-level PT programs in the country. Their job is to ensure excellence in entry-level education, but also turn an objective lens on these schools and kind of hold them to a higher standard, advocate for changes in cost, in the curriculum, and that sort of thing. They publish a number of interesting studies and surveys and research papers all the time. If you're not keeping up with ACAPT and this is something you're passionate about, if you take a lot of entry-level students, if you are maybe a TA or you even a professor at a university, this is definitely an organization you should be aware of and you should be following. They published a really interesting survey. They conducted it in January of this year of 2022, and they published the results back in the spring. It's really quite eye-opening that half of all PT program directors were not sure about the cost of tuition and fees of their own program or what percentage of those tuition and fees went to their budget. And that 80% of those same program directors did have direct authority over their own finances. So we do know that programs themselves can control how much they charge somewhat, but not at every school, but at most programs, they have some input. But over half of those people have no idea what they charge or what percentage of that comes back to the program and what percentage the school keeps. That absolutely has to change. I cannot imagine being in a position at any job where the person in charge has no idea how much money they make or what constitutes their budget. That would be a very unsuccessful company if that was a regular private corporation. They also made a position statement this year that there should be no more PT programs. There should be no more cost increases at PT programs because the discrepancy between what PT school costs and what physical therapists actually make has become so high that it's unrealistic for people to ever possibly pay either the money for PT school while they're in school or eventually pay off the loans they need to borrow to pay for school. Still, the average median salary for a physical therapist across the country is $65,000 against, a loan payment of maybe $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 a month. Again, it's a level of debt that you will be paying on for the majority of your life, unless you somehow happen to suddenly magically double or triple your income, or they decide to cancel student loans. Until either of those scenarios happen, most of us are going to be paying on those loans for the rest of our life. We had a really interesting paper in Physical Therapy Journal that came out just last month in July that really looked at PT programs and looked specifically at what constitutes a PT program being closed, and really ended with an interesting quote. Closures of existing programs are rare and have occurred only a few times in the entire history of physical therapy education. This, to me, says that there's no reason for programs to be innovative because they're pretty much guaranteed a full roster every year. Year over year, the demand for physical therapy school has exceeded the supply. So it kind of conflicts with what ACAPT said, that there shouldn't be any more programs, that there's more demand and supply, and therefore they can charge whatever they want because people will pay it because they want to be a physical therapist. So again, that kind of goes back to the first 3 points of how can we intervene as individuals. We need to get those people early in the pipeline and direct them towards the most cost-effective program that's going to result in them leaving school with the least amount of debt. And finally, my last point of how we can intervene here systemically is to address the clinical experience aspect of the rotations that students do. I had some great rotations. I had a great neuro rotation with a clinical instructor who is actually a gym member here, and she really sharpened me up in those 10 weeks. She was really tough on me on my clinical reasoning. I definitely became a better physical therapist in those 10 weeks. I then went on to a clinical rotation where I showed with you raised. The pillow was underneath the T-spine. You didn't control for the leg placement. You let the knee bend as you reached for your goniometer. Those sorts of things matter. The biggest issue with our profession, the biggest issue with not feeling prepared for practice is not techniques. It's not seeing a lot of patients. We get a ton of that in school. We get a ton of that in our rotations. What we don't get is mentorship and clinical reasoning. So there's a lot of things that can be done to sharpen up clinical experience, and we can hold programs feet to the fire a lot more. This is something we do here. We take students from our alma mater, and we're very tough on them. We're very tough that these students are not prepared. They're not properly instructed in a therapeutic exercise. Mitch actually teaches part of the therapeutic exercise curriculum now. They come to the gym. He gives a lecture on squat science. He gives a lecture on deadlift science. He gives a lecture on shoulder strengthening and the relationship between strengthening and improvement in shoulder function and why we don't need shoulder surgery. And they come to the gym 3 times throughout that course, and they learn how to deadlift. They learn how to teach somebody else how to deadlift. And they do the same thing with the back squat, and they do the same thing with the press. So hold those programs feet to the fire to start to create system-wide change, not just individual change with those students who come to us one-on-one for their individual rotation. So there's a lot to be done here. There's a lot to be done even more on the continuing education side of the equation, the post-grad side, the residency, the fellowship side, and we're going to address that. My next episode will be, I think, the first Thursday of September, right before Labor Day weekend. Some more research to address there, but I hope this was helpful. I hope this starts to give an idea of what the problem is, but also starts to give some solutions that we can not only start to take place in immediately as clinicians, by starting to take undergrad observation students, knowing the costs and the timelines of the programs in our area, but also nationally, so we can make those recommendations to those students, that we can offer whatever we can to students, whether they're undergrad students or PT students, to mitigate a little bit of their cost and make their experience better. System-wide, holding some feet to the fire on the costs of education at universities, of the quality and also of the clinical experience by working with those clin ed directors at the universities that you take students from. So thanks for, I can't believe there's this many people on here at 11:30 in the morning on a Thursday. I appreciate everybody being here. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Have fun with Gut Check Thursday. I saw some comments asking for that research. I will post it here later on today. So have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.